The gym completely changed my life. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. That's the reason that Gymshark is allowed to exist today. That's the reason that I and we are where we are today. I remember being at the first body power event that we ever did, seeing the first ever stringer vest that I'd seen in real life. Are you more about the vision and the business, or are you more about yourself? And fortunately, I managed to set my ego aside and say, I'm going to prioritise the business and its vision over my ego.
So, for people who don't know, just introduce yourself and what you do.
My name is Ben Francis. I'm the founder of Gymshark. Gymshark is a fitness apparel brand, and I started it by hand making the product 8 years ago.
Whereabouts did you grow up?
I grew up just south of Birmingham in a town called Bromsgrove.
So for the American audience, what was it like growing up? What sort of house was you growing up in, area?
So I grew up in for me, obviously, I'd call it a fairly normal upbringing. Normal house in a town called Bromsgrove in just south of Birmingham in the West Midlands, so it's right in the middle of the UK. We're probably about 2 hours outside of London. So super just chill. I mean, it's not like a particularly well-known area. I'd say lately the most well-known thing to come out of the West Midlands will be Peaky Blinders out of Birmingham, which is all over Netflix and everything now. But yeah, it's a fairly normal suburban sort of upbringing.
So as a kid, what was your mindset like around, I mean, people probably expect you that you was a businessman straight away off the get-go. What was your mindset like as a kid?
No, so when I was young, my thing was I just loved sport, right? I wanted to be a footballer. I wanted to play for Villa. So dad, granddad, great-granddad and beyond all supported Villa. So you sort of, inherit that, don't you, as a I guess, being born into more of a football family. So I just loved football. I think it was when I was like sort of 15, 16, realised I was never going to be a professional. I think by that point, right? Because not in any academy or anything like that. And it was at that point where it was my first sort of my first exposure to business, and that business was my granddad's business. Again, I come from quite an entrepreneurial family as well. And he had a company that would line furnaces with either brick or ceramic fibre. Furnaces, if you don't know, is just a massive, massive oven that heats things up. And yeah, essentially just worked with him, and that was my first exposure, I guess, to business.
What was the grafting like on
that? Honestly, it was really fun. It was really cool. It was more like manual labour, so I didn't have any knowledge, right? So I was either helping him with cement over the drum, or helping him lay bricks, or bolting in ceramic fibre into the furnace itself. So it was more just 8, 9, 10 hours of do as you're told sort of thing. But it was really cool for me. And what was particularly interesting, and now looking back, as I know has helped me quite a lot, was the fact that he would tell me some of his sort of stories in starting his business. Now, it was only a small business, right? He was a bit of a one-man band, or he's a bit of a one-man band. But the lessons that I learned from just chatting to him over those long days of graft were absolutely brilliant.
Go on, give us a story.
So when I first went and worked with him, I don't know how old you are. Is it 14 when you do work experience? It's similar, whatever that first exposure is. Probably it might even be younger than that. We were working in a place called Droitwich, so it was quite in the countryside sort of thing, and we were working in essentially a big factory that basically manufactured parts for aeroplanes. And he told me the story about. I think I asked him what was his biggest job that he ever did. And he told me about a furnace that I think he had to build for a company in Germany. And he explained to me that basically to fund that project, because obviously they don't pay him until the work was done, he had to remortgage the house. So he basically, at that time, he had obviously my nan and my mum and her sister, young kids growing up. And he remortgaged his house. He basically managed to finish the project, and then he was shipping it off to Germany. And basically, on the last sort of week, something went wrong to the point where he had to basically ship the stuff off to Germany, and I think there was something missing. There was something that just wasn't quite working for it. And he basically had to rely on this other company to say, do you know what, yes, this is good enough, and pay him the money. And if that company would have said no, then he could well have lost the house. So for me to hear that story of his sort of entrepreneurial journey and how he risked everything from, his house to my nan's house to, the house that my mum grew up in, that at a young age, I think it really sort of helped me understand the risks that entrepreneurs take, but also, I guess, desensitized me to risk in some respects, because then when a few years later on, I was giving up all of my life savings at the time to invest into Gymshark, my risk in comparison to his is like minute. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just risking the money I earned from pizza. He was risking potentially the house that my mum grew up in. So I think that made a real lasting impact on me.
I really want to touch on the risk aspect of it and how you was willing to take the risk, and definitely going to touch on that. Whenabouts did you start getting into the gym?
So I joined the gym for the first time when I was 16. It took me a while to get into it, to be honest, because you guys, right, you lift. When you first go to the gym, you've got no clue what you're doing. So I went to the local gym, got into weightlifting, didn't really do free weights because the free weights was full of, I guess, huge blokes, and I just didn't feel like I fit in there because as a kid I was very skinny, and the reason that I joined the gym was to build muscle and get a bit bigger and eventually build confidence. Got into the gym at 16 and started lifting weights there. I had no idea what I was doing, and it wasn't until a few years later that I actually realised that, you know, everyone else had their own sort of insecurities individually as well. So whereas I was going into the gym thinking, oh God, everyone's looking at me, I don't know what I'm doing. Funnily enough, the other sort of lads at the same age that had joined the gym, none of which were speaking to each other, or I wasn't speaking to them, were all having the same sort of insecurities. To be honest, I joined the gym at 16, and since then I've never looked back.
Did he develop some sort of discipline going to the gym and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so at that time I was not very good at school. So not as in misbehaved, I think I was quite well behaved, but it just didn't resonate with me. I didn't enjoy it, and I basically wasn't getting the grades that I should have got. And then when I went to the gym and I realised that if I turn up 5 days a week and I do the routine that I downloaded from, you know, online, then within a year I would be in a better position than when I left off. And that was the first real structure that I'd sort of self-imposed on myself. And then all of a sudden, about 6-12 months later, once I truly understood the gym and loved the gym, I then applied that to my school life and, you know, my academic life and to learning. And all of a sudden, after applying that to the other side of my life, all of a sudden my grades just started to rise rapidly, and the gym completely changed my life.
So, correct me if I'm wrong with the timings, but then you go to uni, and whilst you're at uni, you start developing apps, websites, and is that the right timings of it all?
Yes, yeah, so I went to uni, is it 17, 18? Went to uni at Aston in Birmingham, which was great for me because it wasn't far from home. And it's a very entrepreneurial uni. But at that point, so going back to when I was at school, during my GCSEs, so up to the age of 16, wasn't very good at school. I was really, really fortunate where, despite not getting brilliant grades, the school allowed me to stay on through sixth form, which is from 17 to 18, I think. And then during sixth form, I picked up an IT class, and that was the class that changed my life, because all of a sudden I learned how to use Photoshop, Illustrator, Dreamweaver, build websites, and that's where I really got the bug for IT and tech. It was then after that, when I joined university, I wanted to essentially develop iPhone apps just because I was fascinated by them. I thought they were cool, and to be honest, there was no one else that was doing it in my area at the time. So taught myself how to develop apps from books and YouTube videos and whatnot, and developed 4 iPhone apps, 2 of which got into the top charts in the UK. They were both fitness apps. Probably weren't in the charts because they were good, but probably more in the charts because no one else was really doing them. For me, that was, again, an amazing learning curve.
And I think some people think that you stumbled across Gymshark, but you was having a go at other businesses as well. So
I developed 4 iPhone apps, and then I think it was 6 or 7 websites prior to Gymshark. So I think inherently I'm quite a creative person. Like even now outside of work, I love just messing around with different things. And at the time, it was just a case of I'm going to make this app, and then this app, and then this app, and then this website, and I just really enjoyed making them. And because I was so into the gym, I guess I just wanted to be involved in the fitness industry, however that made sense. So when I was making apps, rather than just making any old app, I'd combine that with my passion for fitness and make fitness apps, and then try and make fitness websites. And I was messing around trying to make like a fitness social media platform, a fitness sort of forum similar to like bodybuilding.com at the time, like a fitness article page and a blog. It was just a combination of me creating, using the new, tools that I had, web development and app development, creating for my passion that was fitness.
So then, talk us through start of Gymshark.
So I wish I could say that I had this incredible strategic plan as to how it was all going to build out, but it was nothing like that. The reason that I actually made the Gymshark website was because I'd sort of done everything else. Not that I'd actually succeeded in it, because to be honest, I think everything else failed. I just wanted to make a fitness website that would transact. So it was a case of I wanted to sell something. So everything I'd mentioned before was either an app or a blog or a forum or a social network or whatever it was. None of those would transact. So I thought, how cool would it be to have a fitness website that would sell things? The only problem was I couldn't afford any stock to sell. I went to actually one of my friends that lived locally at the time. He worked for a company called USN, so a big South African supplement brand. And I said to him, like, right, what's the cheapest supplements I can buy off you so that I can sell them online, trying to buy stock for the website? And he said it was £8,000 a month minimum order. And like, I mean, I'd never seen £8,000 in my life, let alone £8,000 a month. So that was just a complete no-go. So I sort of hit this brick wall. And then I thought, well, I could drop ship, and drop shipping was brilliant for me because it meant I could load up the website with thousands and thousands of different supplements. So the website was massive and it looked really professional and brilliant, but I didn't have to buy any of the stock. So yes, I got to transact, which was brilliant, but it wasn't in the way that I wanted to. I wasn't holding stock at the time, but it was still an amazing experience, and built the website using Shopify at the time, which again was brilliant for me because it meant that it was actually quite easy to build the website. And yeah, it took a few months, it took quite a while, launched the website and absolutely nothing happened. Then a few months later we had our first sale and it was just absolutely incredible. It was £52, of which about £2 of that was profit by the time we'd shipped the supplement and everything, but it was the best £2 I'd ever made in my life, and it was just so fucking cool. Like, it was just the most amazing feeling ever, and I was literally like running around my bedroom just buzzing. And yeah, then went on to obviously the website and shipped out the product. It all went great, and that was that. And to be honest, that did okay. Like, it was never going to do particularly brilliantly from a commercial perspective because the margins were so small. But for me, it was more of like an academic test that it could be done. Gymshark really didn't do a lot for the next few months, and then I remember being at the gym and just thinking, like, no one makes the clothes that we want to wear. At the time, there was other brands, sort of American brands, that would make big, sort of baggy clothes. There wasn't any of the European brands really doing what we want. No one was speaking to the lifters that we were. So I just thought, why don't we, similar to websites and apps, why don't we just make them? So I bought a screen printer and a sewing machine and started to hand make the clothes that we wanted to wear to the gym. And even in that moment, it wasn't a case of let's make it to sell it. It just came from a place from no one's making it, so let's just make it for ourselves. And there was, at the time, a group of, there must have been at least 10 of us that would all go to the gym together, and we just started wearing it. After a while, decided to put things onto the website, and you know, the margins were much better on clothing. It just seemed to pick up traction so much more quickly than supplements, and people just started to fall in love with the product. I'll never forget, actually, at that point we were making our own clothes, and there wasn't this period of own clothes and then produced elsewhere, but there was a pair of shorts that I really wanted to produce. And I was messaging a guy and chatting to a guy quite regularly, actually, a guy in Pakistan called Tanvir. And we were just chatting away and we were sort of sampling these shorts, and we basically completed this short. We had a finished product that I absolutely loved. And he'd done all the sampling for free just as a favour. And we finished it, and I said to him, this is absolutely brilliant, but the only problem is I can't afford to buy any of them. So can you do me a massive favour and produce, I think it was 250 pairs of these shorts, and send them over to me in the UK, and I promise you, Tanvir, I will pay you the money. And I thought, there's no chance he's going to say yes to this. There is not a chance in hell. But he was like, yeah, cool, let's do it. And he sent me the product. We put it on the website, and it just flew out. Within, I think, 48 hours, I sent him the money for the full order. And then that was when we'd sort of both started producing clothes externally with manufacturers, but also internally as well with the sewing machine and the screen printer. So yeah, at the start, I think there was about 2 years of hand making product. From my nan taught me to sew, my mum taught me to sew. I'd never forget, actually, there was a particular product that I was really struggling on with the sewing machine. And I just couldn't solve this problem. I just couldn't do it. And I had my shift at pizza would always be from 5 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night. And it was coming up to, I don't know, it must have been like 4:30 or whatever, and I just couldn't do this thing. So I said to my mum, I was like, can you please do me a massive favour and just try and like solve this for me, and video sort of an instruction for me so that when I come back from work, because she'd have been in bed, I can then just go and do it. So there was this video that she recorded of basically how to sort the sewing machine out and how to do what I wanted to do. And then I could come home and I guess carry on sewing through the night. And yeah, it was an amazing time. Although it's an amazing time looking back now, but obviously at the time I had no idea that this would be anything. For me, that was just a bit of fun of an evening. So yeah, it's quite weird to look back now.
What was a typical day like right at the start? Like what was that like?
So the typical day actually is quite easy to explain. So I'd wake up in the morning, I'd go to university in the day. So get on the train, get into Aston, do the day. Normally finish uni, I don't know, say 4, go into Pizza Hut and do my working day 5 till 10, and then 10 p.m. onwards I would essentially be working on Gymshark. After about a year, I was still working at Pizza Hut at the time. The job as a delivery driver at Pizza Hut was quite useful because in between deliveries I could jump on my phone and do sort of customer service responses. So it was great because I was obviously being paid to work there. I'd get a free pizza at the end of every shift, and I could also work on Gymshark. So it was like the perfect job in many respects for me. And growing up, being a very, very introverted person, it was very useful for me to be in front of people and having that sort of customer service-like response. So I learnt a lot doing the job as well.
And then at this time, what sort of business experience did you have?
The only business experience I had was the work with my granddad. And to be honest, that is pretty much it.
So for people like when you're starting out, you don't need to be an expert in business or anything like that. You can just get started off.
No, so I would say you don't need to be an expert, and I'd also say that there's definitely I think people underestimate the opportunity to take risk that you have when you're young. So going back to what I said right at the start, I managed to save, I think it was, I don't know, £2,000 or whatever it was, maybe it was probably less than that actually. And for me, that was my life savings, and I risked everything. So that thing of I risked my life savings to do this, but it's just nothing in comparison to the risks that, you know, my grandparents and even my parents have taken. So yeah, I think the opportunity to take risk as a young person is something that's definitely underestimated and just isn't being spoken about enough.
I think it's admirable that you say like it's nothing, but to a young guy, £2,000, that's your new car, or do you know what I mean? That's like it's a big deal to drop that much money on something that who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, but there's a saying that I've heard. I think Jordan Peterson says it, and he says, "He who has a why can bear any how," and I think that's really important because, like, fitness was my why. Like, you've got to remember that fitness completely changed my life. Going to the gym shifted everything. It shifted my physical health, my mental health. It completely shifted my academic life. It got me into sort of a university that I thought I would never be able to get near. And it gave me the opportunity to learn things such as Photoshop, Dreamweaver, and all the other stuff through the skills that I learned in the gym. So fitness for me was like my why. It was like, I want other people to have that experience. So for me to risk what at the time was my life savings was, honestly, there was not a moment where I thought, should I or shouldn't I do this? It was just straight up, I know this is the right thing to do.
Just before we move on, the idea of you learning how to sew to make product is crazy. Just to explain it, talk us through that, sort of getting those lessons and making that decision to take that on for yourself.
So, I mean, I talk a lot actually. The stars had to align for Gymshark to get to where it is, and there's literally about 15 different unique things that just happened to happen at the time. Now, so my mum could sew, and my nan just randomly was doing a course in curtains at the time when I was looking at making this sort of stuff. So it was just the perfect time for me to learn to sew, to be honest. And yeah, I mean, even looking back, I don't know why, because sewing is not anything that it has ever been, and probably it was never of any interest to me, to be honest. It was not something that I ever wanted to do or saw myself doing, but it was a means to get to where I wanted us to be and where I wanted the product to be. So yeah, I mean, I went to Hobbycraft, I bought the sewing machine, and just, you know, called up my nan, asked my mum, and they taught me to sew essentially. Literally just sat over the sewing machine at 19 years old, and it's only now I say this that I realise that probably most 19-year-olds weren't asking their mum and their nan to sew, teach them to sew, probably doing things that were a lot more exciting. But yeah, honestly, I absolutely loved it. It was brilliant. And just, again, completely different, but that opportunity to create something is so important to me, whether it's an app or a website or a stringer vest or a tank top or printing the logo onto a hoodie, whatever it is, I love that feeling of making things.
Were you listening to anyone in particular at the time, sort of for guidance or following online at all? At that time period?
Not really, to be honest. YouTube was a completely different place back then. I mean, I was massively into the fitness scene. I don't know if anyone remembers the old school fitness YouTubers Lex Griffin in the UK, Scott Herman in the US. There's a guy called Scooby over in the US as well. Just those OG fitness people, Greg Plitt, people like that. So I was massively into those guys. But there wasn't really any businessy people on YouTube, certainly not that I followed anyway. And to be honest, at that point, I hadn't realised, I guess, the power of reading and education, sort of self-education. So I was heavily led by gut instinct. And I think that's probably one of the things that I did really well, which I'm most proud of, is the fact that on every opportunity, every single 50-50, I always sort of trusted my gut. I think that's been really important as well.
Yeah, when you've just said about the investment of the money, when people think about maybe taking up the sewing to do that side of things for the business, I think people overthink that situation. It takes them a long time to make it and they probably miss the opportunity. How much of the business was built on, I'm going to do it?
Oh, so much. Like, there are so many occasions where there is that moment where it could go either way, and you just have to trust your gut, from buying the screen print and the sewing machine. So that was a huge decision, from even deciding to make the website in the first place. Risking life savings on those two things, but then risk life savings again on going to the Body Power Expo, which was the first event we did. That was everything that we had at the time as well. The first stock order of the Gymshark Luxe tracksuit was the original tracksuit which blew up. That was all of our life savings as well. So there was 2 or 3 times where again and again and again you roll the dice, and it could have gone either way. And this is what I mean when I say the stars had to align on so many different occasions for Gymshark to get to where we are today. Yeah, I mean, looking back, it's just crazy to think we've gotten to where we have.
Early years, hardest day that you experienced?
Hardest day? I don't know, to be honest. Because to be honest, there was obviously a lot of difficult days, but I just absolutely loved what I did. Even waking up, early in the morning and stamping the ice out of the hose to go and spray down the screen and clean it off. It was just cool. It was good fun because it was like we were doing something that no one else was doing. So all of my friends were either at uni or at work. I just thought it was really cool and just fun, and I absolutely loved every second of it. I would say, I'm just trying to think of anything that was particularly difficult.
Was there a low moment that sort of took you by surprise that made you think, I don't want to do this anymore at all?
Didn't want to do this anymore. I don't know, to be honest. Because even, this is going to sound mental, but even the really crap things, they've all been part of the journey that have led us to where we are today. And there haven't been, I would say the one that really hit me like a bit of a steam train was, so Gymshark was doing incredibly well. So probably about 4 years into the journey, I think it was. It felt like everything we touched turned to gold, right? It was, like I said, 3 different occasions we spent all of our life savings on something and it came off. And then we went and did the first expo, it came off. We went from doing 1 expo to about 7 expos in a year and it just came off. Everything went incredibly well and we were traveling the world and it was incredible. But what we didn't do is we didn't invest properly enough in the foundations of the business. And to be honest, again, going back to sort of education, because there wasn't an education, I didn't realise the importance of building a business with strong foundations. And then Black Friday came and basically the website just completely crashed and everything that could have gone wrong went wrong, to the point where orders were going out without being paid for. People were paying for orders and stuff wasn't going out. There were thousands and thousands and thousands of people affected. And at this point, social media had been very with us. And I'll never forget walking into the office and just seeing everyone's faces, just knowing that we had royally fucked this up. And everyone, and I mean everyone, our head of social now, a guy called Elf, who joined to help build the social media, he didn't do his job for the first 4 months of joining Gymshark because everyone in the business was on customer support. When I say every single human being that worked at Gymshark was just trying to fix the problem that we created during Black Friday. I ended up handwriting sort of apology letters to, it must have been over 1,000 people, like so many different people, and we just had months and months and months just trying to fix it. And there was a moment there because it was a case of, I knew we'd fucked up, everyone in the building knew that we fucked up, and rightly so. We were being told every day that we'd fucked up by obviously the community and the customers. So yeah, just for months and months and months, we just dedicated ourselves to solving the problem and doing the best that we could by the customer. And fortunately now, I guess it's worked out for the best, I would say, because we've managed to build a company with ridiculously robust and strong foundations. And I think maybe if we hadn't had that baptism by fire, then maybe we wouldn't have built the business that we built today.
Yeah, I mean, it's all positive for you being the front of it when it's going good. But when that comes down, that comes crashing down, what's that like dealing with that pressure?
So that's really, really difficult. The one thing I would say is, now having done this for a long time, I think you do sort of learn sort of coping mechanisms, and there's always something that's going to go wrong, right? And there is always something that's going to come back on you, and I definitely do feel it. And I think maybe this is one of the negatives of being so involved in and passionate about the community is, to your point, it's so good when it's going well, but when it's going bad, then the community and the thing that I really care about is obviously negatively affected. So I think I feel it quite a lot. It is incredibly tough, I won't lie. But again, I'm really lucky to have an amazing group of people around me, both professionally and personally, that can help support me, and we all support one another, because everyone at Gymshark, when things go wrong, everyone feels it. I think that's really important to mention. But yeah, it is incredibly, incredibly tough. And I've had to sort of learn to be resilient and learn how to manage the level of responsibility that I and we have over the last few years.
So in those early days as well, a lot of businesses fail. It's like this chaotic period. Have you got any advice for people who are sort of in that sort of stage?
I think you're right. And I do think a lot of I mean, factually so, numbers say that most businesses will fail in the first couple of years. And I never had a fear of failing, and I think that's really important to mention. And I think that massively, massively worked to our advantage because we were so happy and so comfortable taking that gut-led decision so quickly and instinctively. I think that really helped, because there might have been other companies that were in the same position as us that were umming and ahhing as to whether or not they should do certain things, and we just did it. And I think that's so powerful, because I think you can spend so much time worrying about failure or this, that, and the other, and before you know it, it's too late. Whereas I think we were just incredibly, incredibly brave and tenacious in our pursuit of where we wanted to get to. And I think genuinely that made a huge difference to how quickly we've managed to grow the business. And I think the other thing we've been able to do is really grab ourselves around the scruff of the neck and just fix up. So going back to that Black Friday example, there was never a moment where we just moped and wallowed in self-pity. We were like, right, we have fucked this up terribly. First and foremost, we're going to fix it, and then we're going to make sure it never happens again. And I think that's really important as well.
It's good that you took ownership of it as well. Yeah, it's really good. Early on, you're taking, I think I heard you say a number, 500,000 first 2 years. Is that about right?
It was something. It was like $250,000 revenue in the first year, and I think it went up to about $500,000.
And you're still working at Peterson for a large portion of that. What I think a lot of your success at Gymshark is, or the success of Gymshark is the fact that you just carried on reinvesting that money. Where does the temptation come in? Or how important is it as well to not give in to that temptation to go, right, I could have a Beamer, I could have a nice car, I could get a nice house. How did you resist that?
Again, I just absolutely loved what I did. I know what you're saying is there is this temptation of, so I worked at Pizza Hut well beyond that. It was when we did our first event, so we were in the year between $250,000 to $500,000 revenue. So, and to be honest, I kept it quite quiet. It was at the stage where I don't think people would have believed me if I'd have told them anyway. So there's no point in really going on about it. To be honest, I didn't feel that temptation massively. We reinvested everything that we possibly could into the business to grow it to where it was. And I knew the day that the business started that there wasn't going to be a penny taken out of it for several years. And I think it goes back to that why. Like, I just loved it and I wanted to create the best brand I possibly could. And that was a genuine ambition of mine, and which is why I think there was no desire of me to sort of rinse the business for money. The other thing I would say is, after a few years, I had managed through fortune and probably the odd great decision along the way to build an incredible team around me. So as the business got up to the stage where it could start, it genuinely had an opportunity to be a large scale business. So I think we were doing maybe 4 million in revenue, which at the time seemed massive, but compared to where we are now today, it's very much the startup phase. And I met two guys, one called Paul, one called Steve. Met them in the gym, funnily enough. And then there was this bit where they sort of sat me down and they said, do you want to be the biggest brand in Bromsgrove, or do you want to try and make this into a global brand? And obviously I'd taken every risk possible to get it to that point. So I wasn't at that point going to go, right, I'm going to settle down here. And I said I want it to be I want it to be a truly global brand. And that was powerful as well, because again, when you've got the opportunity to create a global brand and a global community, I'm not going to take an extra few £100 here and there just so that I can have a slightly nicer car. My ambition is to make this into a truly global brand. So again, having my eyes locked on that vision, I think really helped as well.
That's what I want to speak about, the steps of growth in terms of the revenue. Just what you think was required at the time, and tell me if the things are the same. Like, so the first one will be £0 to £100,000. Like, what do you have to do? What's going through your head at that point? What's different about that?
So as an entrepreneur, I think it's so entrepreneurs start businesses, right? And it's very important for people to realise that what is required of someone that starts a business on day one is very different to year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 4. And I've experienced this firsthand, where the first couple of years were so tough and gritty, and it required, courage and charisma and a willingness just to ask for what no one else would ask for and just go the extra mile. And quite frankly, for that first couple of years, my role was to grab the business by the scruff of the neck and drag it to where I think it should go to by any means necessary. And if that meant that someone said, no, you can't do this, then my job for the first few years was to say, I don't care, I'm going to get it to where I think it should be by hook or by crook. Then after a while, when the business grows, you start bringing in people and creating a team around you. Now, if you've done that right, those people should be better than you in different areas. In which case, you then need to realise that the way that you were for the first couple of years, the way that I acted for the first couple of years has now expired, and I need to essentially evolve into the next level of entrepreneur or leader. So dragging the business to where I want it to go, regardless of what people say, when you've got great people around you, is completely and utterly the wrong thing to do. So I had this sort of very introspective moment of, oh my God, everything I've been so far and everything I've done now no longer works or is valid. So I had to recreate myself and start to educate myself and learn how I can truly develop the business. So during that period, it was a bit of, okay, there was sort of a halfway house. There was certain bits where I would have to, sort of push my opinion or authority significantly more than what I ever would today, to try and really embed the Gymshark brand, the culture, where we wanted to go, and really just imprint on people where I think this brand will go. But equally listening to those guys and the team around me when they knew better than me. And then in that third phase, as the business gets to where we are today now, I then go from that to being much more around thinking outside of the box, thinking far ahead, and ultimately having to be as articulate as I can in the vision, because I'm now not communicating it to just myself, or I'm not communicating it to 5 or 6 people around me. I'm communicating it to hundreds, if not thousands or hundreds of thousands of people around the world. So now my role has changed massively. If I look from day one, drag the business to where I think it should go by hook or by crook, to now articulate the vision and work together in building an incredible team that is, self-reinforcing and takes the business to where we all think it should go together. So I think it's so important as an entrepreneur and as a founder to be flexible and be comfortable in reinventing yourself and educating yourself in things that you're not good at. Because if you do just stay the same, then I think you'll become very one-dimensional, and I just don't think the business will be built in the right way for the long term.
Is there a defining sort of, maybe not revenue, but like thing that highlights when you need to make that change?
Yeah, so, I mean, the Black Friday example, so just failure certainly helps. So that was an incredible moment of, oh my God, there are no foundations in this business. And the reason there's no foundations in this business is because I haven't been smart enough to put them in. And that is completely my fault and no one else's. Sometimes people will come up with incredible ideas and you'll probably think that they're wrong, and then you'll realise that you were wrong, and then it's sort of, sometimes you'll say it, sometimes you won't, and then you'll sort of gradually realise that the people around you are brilliant in ways that you aren't, and I think that's important. But yeah, there is the odd occasion, but ultimately I think it really is down to just being as self-aware as you possibly can be and understanding what you are good at and not. So the other thing I would say is, for the first few years, my thing was, I don't care about my weaknesses. I'm only going to focus on my strengths, and I'm going to bring people around me to essentially fill in those gaps and those weaknesses. And now the team around me is just as talented as what they are. I've got the luxury of being able to not only focus on my strengths, but then when I want to as well, work on my weaknesses and develop as well. So I think that's been really powerful for me as well.
The quote you said, hire people who are better than you. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people, especially in business and the entrepreneurial world, have that ego where that's a very difficult thing to do, and it restricts them from being successful.
Oh, and I'll never forget. So the first, I mean, I've done this so many times, and there's been so many moments where I've just been, I guess, fed humble pie. But I remember bringing in someone into the ops team essentially, and I'd built this link between Shopify and Royal Mail, and I thought it was the best thing ever because I had a little bit of development experience, but in reality it was terrible. And this person came in, and I remember hearing them talk about how terrible this integration was that I'd built, and it needed to go, and we needed to replace it immediately. And it was this horrible moment of, I hate you because you're rinsing the work that I've done, but I hate you even more because I know that you're right and the work that I did was crap. And it does feel like your heart's being ripped out because, especially, I mean, even today it feels like this way, but even more so when the business was smaller, it was my baby. So to hear other people talking about aspects of it in that way was definitely difficult. And to be honest, it's probably not anything that you could ever really get used to. But I think once you've had the positive reinforcement of bringing in brilliant people that can advance the business and, I can grow from and learn from as well, I think once you have that constant reinforcement, it definitely helps in making those decisions now. Is
it difficult to drop that ego? Because it is like, like you say, when it's your baby, this is your thing, to sort of let go of that. It's very, I could imagine it to be very difficult.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult. It's incredibly emotional because great brands have people pour their heart into them, right? They pour their passion and their heart and their soul. And I did exactly that. So you're right, to then have someone come in and criticize that is very difficult to take. And it does hurt, but ultimately that's just one of many tests of, are you more about the vision and the business, or are you more about yourself? And fortunately, I managed to set my ego aside and say, I'm going to prioritise the business and its vision over my ego.
So we're reaching this sort of the later stages, sort of almost present day. Mm-hmm. What would your daily routine look like today?
Oh, today? Well, it looks very different now. I would say I'm very, very, very regimented, and that suits me down to the ground actually, because I would say I'm mildly autistic in many ways, in the sense that, and I've managed to sort of learn and control those tendencies massively well, I think, over the last few years. But I love routine. I love consistency to the gram, right? So it would be 5:30 every single day. I'm up on the minute, and I go down, and I will have 70 grams of granola and a protein shake and a water. And then, do you know what I mean? My lunch and breakfast and tea is generally very, very consistent. I'll lift 5 days a week. I will run, and I know this probably isn't the best thing to do, but I'll run the same program 5 days a week for years and years and years on end, because that routine is so, so important to me. Usually start work around 7-ish, finish work, to be honest, not massively late. On average, I'd say 7, finish at 6-ish. Obviously, some days I'd start earlier and finish later. Some days I'd start later and finish earlier. And when so outside of that routine, my work life will change massively. So outside of COVID, I will travel a lot. Inside of COVID, I could be working on product one day with brand on another day, on the overarching board and business direction another day. But having those guardrails is really important to me. And then in my own personal life as well, I have a brilliant support system, which really helps me as well.
We came into this building today. We were super excited about coming here because for us, like we have a vision for Mulligan Brothers to have this studio that is similar to this building. So it was like it was really amazing for us to come in here, and it was a lot grander than I thought it was going to be. Like the space is amazing. Have you sat here by yourself on a night and thought back to the room where you were sewing? You know, and there's probably cupboards bigger than that. The room you were sewing in.
Oh yeah, there is definitely cupboards here bigger than that room. Honestly, no, not here. It feels like my entire life is on a treadmill or on a conveyor belt, whatever you want to call it, and I love it that way. I love progress and constant growth, but I can't say I've sat in here and had that sort of moment. I remember though, the day we opened up this office, in fact there's two moments actually, so the day we opened up this office and I had a similar moment, and also the day that we signed on the deal that we recently did. And the deal that we recently did, valued at the business, it was $1.45 billion, which is like just mental, right? Absolutely mental. And I had the same thing. We did the opening day here, we did the signing both of those days, and it was more driving home, and it was more like everything's so crazy, everything's so crazy, everything's so crazy, and then you get in the car, shut the door, and it's like you're on your own for the first time in what feels like forever. And it's only in that moment when I'm like, that's when I think, wow. And to be honest, I've never thought, wow, how far have we come? Because it's not just that, because I'm the sort of person that's always thinking about what's next. I always want to know what's next. It's less almost like what happened 10 minutes ago is almost irrelevant to me, what's next. It's more about, wow, look how far we've come, yet the excitement of knowing how much further we've got to go. And I think that's so exciting to me.
What have you sacrificed to sit here today?
What have I sacrificed? Oh, wow. To be honest, to me, it doesn't feel like I've sacrificed a lot. So hardly ever drink, never really went out as a kid, never did a lot of the, normal stuff that people would do between the age of 18 and, how old am I now, 28. So there's certain things that I feel like I've missed out on, but equally I've had experiences that I know that few people may ever have. Like I'm 28 years old and I've traveled the world, and I could probably tell you a story from 50 different countries, and that's just crazy. Do you know what I mean? And the opportunity to meet so many brilliant people has been really powerful for me. There was definitely a period at the start where I sacrificed spending time with family, but now I just try and pay that back in an abundance, if that makes sense. So I'll spend pretty much every weekend I will see family now, which is, I think, probably contrary to what most entrepreneurs will tell you, where it's like graph, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. If it's Saturday or Sunday, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to go and see my family. And I really enjoy that, and that's really important to me. I'm trying to think, what else have I sacrificed? I don't know, to be honest. I think I've sacrificed lots, but it's probably small things just along the way.
You say about hiring people. I think that's one quality that a lot of people have credited you for, like hiring the right people. Is there a particular quality of person that a person would have that you're looking for?
So it depends on what role they're going for. So if I'm looking for anyone that's creative, then 9 times out of 10, I would love them to have a creative hobby. If someone tells me they're a through and through creative, but they only are in a creative role professionally, but there's nothing outside of work that they do that's creative, then for me, to be honest, that's a bit of a sort of a red flag. In terms of joining the business, there's a bunch of different things that we look for. We want everyone to be truly humble. So work hard, stay humble is something we talk a lot about here, and we are a massively culture first business. We don't want people with an ego. We don't want people that are sort of self-centered, but I think that's a fairly consistent thing that many businesses will look for. And to be honest, we want people that are just excited to contribute to the greater vision, and that's really important to me. And that doesn't, by the way, mean that they need to be heavily involved in fitness or not. I think everyone's got their own reason as to why they join Gymshark. But for me, I just think if you are humble, if you are smart, and you want to contribute, then I think that's brilliant.
You spoke about like people in, I would say, in our sort of world, like Gary Vee and Jordan Peterson and people like that. Jordan Peterson's one that really sticks out to me. I've read his book a couple of times, The 12 Rules. Have you read it yourself?
Yeah.
Is it all right
Incredible.
to read a couple of the rules and just get your thoughts on it? It's so the first one will be stand up straight with your shoulders back.
Oh, this is great because Jordan Peterson's my idol. Like, he's like, to me, one of the most influential people in my life that I've never met. He's an utter genius, and pretty much, I haven't read the book in a while now, but I hold myself heavily accountable to each one of those rules. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. That to me is all about, and that's important to me. One, because I naturally don't have a great posture, which is useful. But two, I do hold myself accountable in the sense that, and even in my position, I will have that moment of, fuck, should I be here? Should I be talking here? Should I be doing this? I don't know, not imposter syndrome, because I don't think it is that. I don't think it's that bad, but I'll sort of I'll question myself in my head. And I do think, no, just stand up fucking straight, put your shoulders back and sort of speak, and that's why it's important to me. And to be honest, even just doing that, I think, I say as I slouch in this chair now, it does just change you mentally, doesn't it? So yeah, I think it's huge.
Treat yourself like you are someone you are responsible for helping.
So that is my favourite rule, and that is the one that I apply to myself more than anything. And I always think, whether it's something I do want to do or don't want to do, if I was looking after, and I spend my life, I feel like, and he talks a lot about you have to sort of zoom out and sort of watch yourself in many respects, and I do that all the time, and I listen to every word I say, and I'm constantly trying to think, is there a better way I could have done that or said that or approached that problem? But I think that's so important as well. And what was it? There was, I used to have trouble sleeping a lot. I would always be that person that would be up till like 3 a.m. and then get up in the morning and whatever. And I remember thinking to myself, like what is your fucking problem? And then I'd sort of had this conversation in my head that said, well, I can't get to sleep at night. And I said, well, and again, I treated myself like I'm someone I was caring for. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't you start waking up early in the morning? If you keep doing that for long enough, then you'll get tired at night. You're the moron who's going to bed at 3 a.m. and getting up at 10. And then I just thought, right, and at the time I think it was 6 o'clock, right, I'm going to get up at 6 o'clock every morning. And funnily enough, all of a sudden, my sleeping pattern just falls into place. And I'm not staying up till 3 a.m. because I'm getting tired by 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And that's just one example of when I've just sort of had to grab myself around the scruff of the neck. Because I think I'm quite a tough love person. So when I'm working with people, I think I absolutely love the people I work with, but I'm going to be very honest and direct with them. And ever since reading Jordan Peterson's book, I try and hold myself to the same standard that I think I hold other people by. So yeah, there's countless occasions where I'll just sort of, again, treat myself like someone that I'm caring for. And I think that's just a brilliant rule.
Make friends with people who want the best for you.
Yes. That's important. And I must admit, to be honest, I haven't made a lot of new friends lately, which is not by design, to be honest. It's just, I mean, I spend my life working and I'm introverted and I spend time with family when I'm not working and close friends. But that is true. Not for a long, long time, but there were definitely people that I would tell things to and I would be really proud and happy. And it would almost like a balloon deflating. It would feel like they weren't truly happy for you. And I mean, it takes a bit of courage, but I think you just need to understand that again, both inside of work and outside of work, just surround yourself with great people that do want the best for you, and it makes such an incredible difference.
Set your house in perfect order before you criticise the world.
Yes, albeit. So since reading that, previously I feel like I'd always have an opinion on something, and I wouldn't always say it, but in my head I would be quite judgmental. I think, oh, why doesn't this person do this? Why don't they do this? But that's so true, and there's so many things that I'm just crap at that need to sort out. So, yeah, I just need to sort of sort myself out, and it's, yeah, I think that's very important. Let me just think what I want to say about that. Yeah, I think there's so many things that I am not very good at. Why would I waste time criticising others? But again, every single one of these rules I think is just genius.
Great one for Gymshark, pursue what is meaningful.
Yes. And I think Jordan Peterson talks about responsibility, giving meaning, and that's so true. And every extra bit of responsibility that I've shouldered over the last few years has just improved me as a person, but also made me feel so much more fulfilled in life. And at Gymshark, again, going back to that, he who has a why can bear any how, that's so important to me because there are so many speed bumps along the way, from the little ones that happen every single day to that huge one that blindsides you on a random Tuesday afternoon that just feels like it knocks you for six. But when I'm thinking about that 10, 50, 100-year vision, they just all of a sudden become so small and easy to deal with.
Tell the truth, or at least don't lie.
Yes, that's so good. Although I must admit, when I did read that, I went through a period of, right, I'm just going to tell everyone the truth, and that was I think my ego speaking, because I would just sort of be too, I guess, obtuse with the way that I would just be like, I think this, so I definitely have changed the way that I've taken that. So I hold myself to being as honest as I possibly can be. I don't lie at all. Which in the short term can definitely lead to difficulties, but I think in the long term is the right thing to do. And yeah, again, I just hold myself as accountable as possible to that as well.
I've heard you say quite a few times about Gymshark, pure transparency, like having that just open transparency. So is that something that you've followed through yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I really do try. And again, every aspect of life, both professional and personal, it is important. It does, it means a hell of a lot to me to be just as open and transparent as open and transparent as I guess we possibly can be.
Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't.
Yeah, that's again massive. So something I always think when I'm meeting new people, slightly different, always try and learn something from them. So I think maybe I'm a bit more overt with that, but I'll always try and dig into, I guess, why people do what they do and just understand and learn from them. Because, so I talk about the group around me who are brilliant, sort of brilliant high achievers, super smart, but you can learn so much from the random person that you chat to on the street. Funnily enough, and this is going back to commercial, so it's slightly different, but I was in Canada a few years ago, and there was a guy there, and I was just chatting to him. I go to all the events, and we're just chatting away, and then we ended up talking about sort of camo gear, so again, clothes with sort of a camo pattern on. I don't know how we got onto it, but we're just chatting away about it. And then I went home from that and we added camo into the range just because we'd been speaking about it and we've never had camo in the range previously, this is going back a few years. And that camo then just went off and sold millions and millions of units and it was incredibly commercially successful to us. And that's one just conversation that I had with a bloke and we were just, again, chatting about nothing, just sort of chewing the fat. And then that had a huge impact on the business. And there's been so many occasions like that where I've just been speaking to people, trying to learn about them, that's given me that sort of golden nugget that I can then apply to my life. And, hopefully I've taught a few people a few things as well. So, yeah.
The last one, we're just on the rules. It's not all of the rules, but the last one is be precise in your speech.
Yeah, so I'm still working on that, and I think I've got a lot of work to do on that. But there's two things that led me to. One, I read a brilliant book that was called, what was it called? I can't remember what it's called, but basically it was a book around sort of articulation and speech, which is really, really important because going back to those different stages of an entrepreneur, one of the most powerful things for me now is being truly articulate. That's really, really important, especially because I'm, explaining my vision and goals and the way that the business is running to so many people. So that led me to that, and that's been really powerful for me. And applying that to me has probably been one of the easiest and efficient ways of me improving myself, has been just becoming more articulate. And then separately, which it feels like I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, I'm sure everyone's had this. When COVID went down, everyone downloaded Duolingo, and I started learning Spanish for like 2 weeks, which is really cool, right? It's great to learn a second language. It's something I've always wanted to do. And then, randomly, I fell on a YouTube video of, I think it was The Darkest Hour, so Winston Churchill's speech. And I listened to this speech, and I thought, Christ, he speaks so utterly brilliantly. My level of English compared to his level of English are just incomparable. So whilst I'm off thinking I speak English, I'm going to go and learn Spanish, I instantly deleted Duolingo and I've gone, right, I am going to learn the English language to the best of my ability and become the most articulate, brilliant speaker that my genetic makeup will possibly allow me to be. Because I think the payback for that is just so, so brilliant. I think the fulfillment that you can get from it is brilliant too. So yeah, that really resonated with me as well.
I think that's one I need to work on. Just speaking of Jordan Peterson, just for the people out there, because I know for young men especially, like his book I think is absolutely golden for them. What's your takeaway, and what would you like urge people to do?
So my ultimate overarching takeaway from Jordan Peterson's book is that I think so much more is in the control of the individual than what people think, and that's quite easy for me to say, right, sat in the position that I'm in. But the only reason that I or Gymshark has gotten to where we are today is because we took control of the situation that I was in. I followed my passion, and there was never a point where we've gone, the world has dealt us a bad hand, so we're just going to mope. And I think that's so important, that whatever happens, and it's not everyone is dealt the same hand. Some people have a better hand than others, and some people have more opportunity than others. And unfortunately, I think that's part of life, and it's a shame. And hopefully over our lifetimes, we can try and level that playing field as best we can. However, you're dealt with a hand, and ultimately that's the hand that you've got to play. And I think people have more control than what they think. And I think if you really take time to focus on self-development and improvement, I think you'd be very surprised as to the incredible gains that you can make.
Just to gauge a scale here as well, is like, for some people who don't know, what is the current size of Gymshark, like employees, property, like everything?
So Gymshark, as of, 6 months ago, whatever it was valued at a $1.45 billion business. We are the second business, as far as I'm aware, in the history of the UK to become a unicorn, so a £1+ billion valued business with no funding. So we've had no funding prior to this. We've got about 550 employees spread over we've got 3 buildings in Birmingham where we sat today. We've got an office in Hong Kong, in Mauritius, in London, and in Denver, Colorado. Revenues last year were over £250 million, and next year the growth is still just absolutely rapid. UK's fastest growing business a couple of years ago, the fastest growing business of all time in the Midlands, and the year after that we were the fastest growing profits in the United Kingdom as well. So it's a rapidly growing commercial business. It's incredible to be a part of, but ultimately, and I keep going back to it, there are tens and tens and tens of millions of people that follow Gymshark on social media. There are millions of people that have had their lives positively affected by what we do, including me. Like, I was the first person that was positively affected by Gymshark, and I want to try and spread that as far and wide as I possibly can. And there are countless people that I've met face to face at the events that we do all over the world that have told me about how Gymshark or Gymshark's wider athlete team have changed their lives. And to me, that's the most important and incredible thing that we've achieved here.
In terms of, I definitely want to touch on that again. I've got a couple of the athletes that you guys are working with at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like the business side of things, and I guess it is something we just spoke about just then, what is the vision for Gymshark right now in your head? Like, how far are you looking ahead, and sort of what is that vision now?
So my vision long term is, so I would love, so people in the know will get this, right? You've got powerlifters and crossfitters and runners and then bodybuilders and all these different sort of facets of fitness. And ultimately I would love for Gymshark to be the uniting of those. So I would love this brand to unite the conditioning community and be the brand that is the gym brand and the self-improvement brand and the physical improvement brand and the mental improvement brand. So aside from that sort of community-focused vision, I also think that because of the unique time we're in where social media has changed everything, right? Companies like Shopify and this online e-commerce revolution has changed everything. Everything that's going on outside us and around us now with COVID and the sort of new normal that we're going to find ourselves in and offline retail. I think Gymshark can be one of the first brands that's truly built in the new way. So the old model of basically build as much product as you can to put into as many stores as you can to please as many people as you can, lead into big, slow, clunky businesses with product in every store you can possibly imagine. Now, I think those days are definitely dying quickly. I think the future of brands are truly agile brands that are community-led like we are, and purpose-led, because people really want to wear a brand that truly resonates with their core values. So I think aside from uniting the conditioning community, I think Gymshark can represent the future of brands and can be one of the first brands that's built in a truly modern way.
I know you don't tend to look at other companies, and I've heard you say that in the past. I've read, I don't know if you've read the book yourself, Shoe Dog.
No, I haven't.
Everyone
tells me to read it though.
And I think what's really crazy to see is I read that book and you've achieved what is in that book, that whole book, within, like you say, like a short period of time, like this new era of company. Do you see yourself taking over the likes of those companies? Is that something that's in your mind at all?
No, and I'll tell you why. Because, so I think a very simplistic way to look at it is Gymshark is against some of those bigger brands, but I think there's a huge difference between a sportswear brand and a fitness wear brand. Like, if fitness was a sport, I'd have no doubt it would be one of, if not the biggest sport in the world. It's huge, and that we're trying to cater for the accountant that goes to the gym once a week, to the elite athlete that, like Ryan Garcia, who wants to be in the most incredible condition possible for his profession, which is boxing, and we want to cater for those people. We're not interested in putting football boots on football players, or cleats on American footballers, or supporting a basketballer on the court. We're all around conditioning and fitness and everything that happens before, and essentially everything that you do today to prepare for tomorrow is what we want to be working on.
This last weekend we spoke to Rob Kearney, World's Strongest Gay, who you guys have now taken on as an athlete. His story is amazing, but like, how important is it for you to sort of sponsor athletes like that who are bigger than the sport as well, and it's like they're doing stuff outside of the sport?
Yeah, so Rob's amazing because, again, he's a great person anyway. He's a great human being, which is powerful, and he's going back to that cultural element for us. That's really important. But yeah, I'm not sure about individuals being bigger than the sport. I mean, maybe some people are. I'm not really sure. But for me, the way that we want to align ourselves with others that have the same core values and core vision, and essentially want to do the same thing, right? And I think Rob's a great example of someone that is inspiring people in so many ways to improve themselves, again, physically and mentally. And I think that's so, so powerful. But so do a lot of the other Gymshark athletes, so do all the other Gymshark athletes. And I think that's the other reason why there are athletes that Gymshark has worked with since day one for 8 years. There are very, very few brands that that can confidently and comfortably say that they have athletes they have worked with for 100% of their lifetime. And there are very few people that will join onto Gymshark and then move on. And that's because we hire really slowly. We're really careful about the people that we bring onto the brand. And ultimately, because we have the same core vision and ethos, I think the partnerships work incredibly well.
What drives you now?
What drives me now? To be honest, again, it's just having as big an impact as possible. Like, being completely, going back to transparency, being completely transparent and candid. I'm financially, I'm set. I'm fine. I'm beyond my wildest dreams as a kid growing up in the West Midlands. Like, this doesn't happen to people like me. So for me now, I'm really focused on, one, being the best that I can possibly be. Going back to Jordan Peterson, I want to, grow myself and be as brilliant as I can be. But equally, I want Gymshark to inspire as many people as possible. That's really, really important to me. And that's about improvement both physically and mentally as well. Because if you go back to my initial day one transformation, that was both mental and physical. And I think people underestimate the mental benefits of going to the gym.
Life, business, what is the biggest lesson you've learned so far?
I don't know if it's a lesson, but there's always one word that always sticks with me and has throughout. And that word is courage, is that little things take courage, but also big leaps take courage. And I think that's something that needs to be spoken about a little bit more, because if I even go back to Gymshark's journey as a company or on my own, every decision that we've made with courage, and we've backed ourselves. And I think that's really, really important.
Looking back through the whole journey, taking a step back, what's the sort of things that run through your mind?
So this is funny. So after we signed the deal, like saying, driving home, I had that moment where it was like in a flash. I remember walking home from the train station after a day at uni, coming up with the idea to buy the Gymshark domain and come up with the Gymshark, open the Gymshark website. I remember it was quite a long walk, but I remember then later on walking, thinking, okay, there's no money that's going to be taken out of this business because we're going to do it for this. I remember being at the first body power event that we ever did, seeing the first ever stringer vest that I'd seen in real life. I remember going off and buying a cheaper £5.99 version off Amazon because it was the cheapest way I could get my hand on a stringer. I don't know, it's like this huge flash of, I remember doing our first events, the doors opening and us being flooded. I remember getting back to the unit after that and seeing my dad and brother, because they were packaging up the orders whilst we were at the event. opening up this HQ for the first time and seeing, I think it was 100 or 150 people walk in for the first time and seeing the buzz on their faces, the Gymshark events and all the amazing people that I've met. It's like this huge just flash of everything that's happened in 8 years in like a split second. So yeah, it's just crazy to look back.
From when you were sort of getting into it, the young kid growing up where you were, what's your advice to that guy now?
What would my advice be to me if I was as a kid? To be honest, it would be just pursue whatever you find interesting at the time. So again, all the different things that I've did, all the 7 failures previously, that's the reason that Gymshark is allowed to exist today. That's the reason that I and we are where we are today, is because of the app that failed, or the website that crashed, or the social network that had an error in the code, so it was just fucked from day one sort of thing. All those things led to Gymshark. So I really think, I would just say to myself as a kid, just whatever you're passionate about, just create and just go, because, you know, one day down that meandering path, you'll end up finding something special that just happened to be the thing that everyone wanted in that moment, that just happened to be perfectly suited to the skill set that you have. So yeah, just keep trying.
Was it worth it? The pizza, was it all worth it?
Oh, 100%. It was so worth it. And by the way, like, this is the thing. I enjoyed working at pizza. It was fucking cool. I met great people. I got to eat a free pizza every day. That was so cool. There was never a point where I was like, oh, I hate this. Like, I enjoyed it. And I love what I do now, and I feel like I've got the best job in the world now. But honestly, I've loved every second of it, the good times and the bad times, and it's easy for me to say now. But I don't think the good times are as good if you don't have the crap times as well. So yeah, it's brilliant. Got the best job in the world.
Lastly, it's just some words. It's not quick fire, it's just whatever comes to your mind when you say it, just expand on it.
Yeah.
Just 6 or 7 words. Purpose.
Meaning, that's the first word I thought then. For me, purpose gives meaning, and I love having a purpose, a wider overarching purpose that does make any of those small road bumps seem insignificant.
Sacrifice.
I don't know. That's a funny one, because to me, I feel like when you do make sacrifice, 99% of the sacrifices that you make are for almost like expedient things that are short-term over long-term. I've never worked towards something that's a true long-term goal and felt, oh, I'm making so many sacrifices here, because the benefit is so, the pros outweigh the cons. Yeah. I
love what you say about sacrifice, that it didn't feel like sacrifice because it was working towards something, so it never felt like, I think that's right.
And that's not to say, right, like, there was obviously times I hated it. So like I said, freezing cold, cleaning off screens. In that moment, did I want to be there? No. But I knew that it was working towards something greater.
Mindset.
Mindset. So mindset's a funny one. Because, so as a kid, so my dad worked away a lot. Like, there were certain years he'd be away for like 6 months of the year, right? But like I said, I would play sport, and he would take me to sport a lot. And he would never really talk to me about like fitness or speed or running. But the thing he would always drill into me for as long as I can remember was mindset. And he would always talk about, you have to be strong mentally almost before you're strong physically. So mindset's a funny one. It's something that I feel like it's been a part of my life for forever. I think in many ways, mindset can solve everything, right? Even the most terrible of problems, with the right mindset, can be dealt with well. But yeah, mindset's been something that I've been very consciously aware of for my entire life.
Do you remember any of those sort of moments, like in particular, where he'd chat to you?
Yeah, I remember. I think I was playing football, and I can't remember. Basically, I was playing football, did something wrong, and then some guy came up to me, a coach, and sort of gave me some advice. And then I went and told him, and I was like, I don't really agree with this advice that I've been given. And he said, listen to the advice, you know, take it on board, but ultimately it's up to you as to what you do, you know, apply to your game and what you don't. Get advice, listen to it, be polite, absorb it, but ultimately it's up to you what you apply. And I think that's really important, because I mean, I get tons of advice, and not all of it's good. Much of it is good, but not all of it's good. So, yeah, I think it's important that you can just apply what makes sense to you.
I think one thing that everyone is like talking about at the moment, you're a billionaire. That's what everyone's saying. Billionaire, billionaire, billionaire. Entrepreneur plastered all over the place. So I think for me, it'd be really interesting to hear your opinion on the word entrepreneur.
Oh, God. I'll admit, up until about a year ago, I hated that word. I absolutely hate it. Even to this day, I do cringe. Albeit I do think it's become a bigger thing, and I would never really, again, up until very lately, describe myself in any way as an entrepreneur. And if anyone did, it would pain me to hear it. It'd be awkward. But now I understand, having watched probably more videos like Gary Vee and things like that, and even Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson, there was a video I watched a while ago where he'd sort of talk about the mindset or the mentality of an entrepreneur and how it's similar to, I think he said, like an artist, which was fascinating to me. So now I think the term has more validity. But yeah, I don't really know, to be honest.
What turns you off about the word?
I feel like I used to always think about those proper just entrepreneurs who would be like a CEO of, I don't know, a business that has no employees. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I feel like for me, a CEO is a prestigious title that you have to earn, right? I mean, I'm not a CEO. Hopefully, I'd love one day to be a CEO. I'm not a chief exec. And I just felt like it would always have connotations to those people that would be more around being seen as an entrepreneur than being an entrepreneur, which I think led to a lot of probably legitimate entrepreneurs almost not calling themselves that. So, yeah, I don't know. Albeit, I do think it's getting better now, and I think there's more validity in it now.
Failure.
I love failure. So that's probably another thing that I haven't spoken about in this. I'm very, and I think we at Gymshark are actually getting really good at failing. Like, we are really good, and there's definitely not a feeling of negativity around failure, because again, it's an opportunity to learn, and I think we embrace failure. And I think even in my career, going back to those 7 failures prior to Gymshark, yeah, I've always enjoyed and embraced failure, and I think that's important too.
Hard work.
What's that saying? Is it hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, I think? I think Steve, our chief exec, talks about that. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to work hard, right, in whatever that you do, and if you don't, then I just don't think you'll get to where you want to be. Again, I hold myself incredibly accountable, and I think everyone here works ridiculously hard. It's massive.
Last one, Gymshark.
Wow. Well, obviously, when you say Gymshark, I didn't expect that. I just think of all the mental times we've had, and all the incredible opportunities that we've got in the future. Yeah, I think of all the events that we've done. I think of all the incredible people that I've met, and just the amazing journey that we've been on.